Have you ever felt like you're wearing a mask? Not just in the I'm pretending to be someone else way, but in the way where the mask feels like it's supposed to be your face. Like everyone around you is convinced it's real, but you know better. You touch it, tug at the edges, and it's tight enough that you could almost convince yourself it's part of you. But deep down, it chafes. It doesn't sit right. Maybe you've played along for years. You've done all the things people said you should. Worn the right clothes, smiled at the right moments, answered to the name everyone calls you. Maybe you've even gotten good at it. People call you a girl, a woman, and it doesn't sting exactly, but it doesn't feel like the truth either. It's like hearing someone say your name wrong. It's close enough to respond to, but not enough to feel like it belongs to you. And when people talk about womanhood, about what it means to be a girl, you listen and nod. You get it, you really do. But some part of you feels like you're watching from the outside, a kid with their face pressed against the glass. Maybe you even feel guilty, like you're taking up space you don't deserve. Because if you don't feel all the way like a girl, then what are you even doing here? You tell yourself you're just confused or overthinking. You minimize it. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. But if it wasn't a big deal, why does it keep coming back? Why, when you're alone, away from the noise and the expectations, does this little voice whisper that something's off? You bury it, you shove it down, because life would be easier if you could just be what everyone says you are. But ignoring it is like pushing a beach ball underwater. The harder you press, the stronger it fights to break free. That's why being a demigirl matters. It's saying, I am allowed to be complex. I am allowed to feel connected to girlhood, but not entirely. I am allowed to exist in this gray area, and it doesn't make me broken. It's about acknowledging that the label girl can feel almost right and even comfortable sometimes, stifling other times, but you don't have to cram yourself into a box that doesn't fit. You can embrace girlhood when it feels right and let it go when it doesn't. You don't have to perform a role for anyone. And if you're still here watching this video, I bet it's because this hits something real, maybe something you've been avoiding. You're not faking it. You're not broken. It's okay if you don't have all the answers yet. This feeling is valid, even if it feels messy and undefined. Demigirl is a name for this space, but it's not the only one. You can pick it up, put it down, try it on, or discard it. It's about giving yourself permission to be uncertain. Here's the truth. You don't owe anyone certainty. You don't owe anyone an easy answer. You are allowed to exist as you are, even if you're figuring it out. That discomfort you feel, it's your mind begging you to listen, to stop running from what feels true. It's your gut saying, hey, something doesn't fit. We need to talk. You can ignore it, but it'll keep knocking until you listen. It's not going to let you lie to yourself forever. You're worth being understood. By others, sure, but most importantly, by yourself. You deserve to feel seen, whole, and real. And if the word demigirl helps you make sense of all this, even a little, then it's worth exploring. You're worth exploring. So what's it gonna be? Are you going to listen to that voice, or are you going to keep trying to convince yourself that mask fits? Because sooner or later, you're going to need to breathe. That's where being a demigirl comes in. It's about recognizing that you connect with being a girl or woman, but only partly. Some days, that connection feels strong, like a part of you belongs to that space. Other days, it fades, and you feel closer to something else. You don't have to reject femininity to be a demigirl. You can embrace it as much or as little as feels right, because being a demigirl isn't about how you dress, act, or look. Now, let's talk about 5 signs you might be a demigirl. First, you might feel like being called a girl or woman isn't exactly right, but it's not completely wrong either. Maybe when people call you she or refer to you as a woman, it's not uncomfortable, but it feels a bit off, like wearing shoes that almost fit but rub your heel the wrong way. You can walk in them, but you always notice they're not quite right. You might feel more comfortable when people talk about you in a more neutral or flexible way, like not putting you in a box. You ever look in the mirror and feel this tug of war inside you? It's not confusion, it's a split. On one side, you see a girl, and maybe that's okay. Maybe some days it even feels good, but it never feels like the whole picture, does it? It's like you're wearing clothes that mostly fit, but they pinch in places. Like a dress that looks good but feels wrong when you move. You could pull it off, but deep down, you know it's not you. You feel like you're almost a girl. But that word doesn't quite stretch far enough to cover what you are. That's the first sign, when girl feels close enough that you don't want to throw it away, but not close enough to be your truth. And then there's this constant shape-shifting, not just fashion or style, but something deeper, how you carry yourself, how you feel. One day, you're leaning into femininity, dresses, makeup, soft edges, and it feels right. But then there are days when the idea of being seen as a woman feels stifling, like a spotlight burning too hot. You swap out for hoodies and jeans, rougher lines, something that feels like an escape. It's not rebellion, it's relief. That's the second sign, when your identity feels fluid, not locked down, but still tethered to girlhood in some way. You're not denying being a girl, but you're definitely not all the way in. And then there's this gnawing feeling when people talk about womanhood, about what it means to be a woman, how it's supposed to feel. You hear the stories of girlhood, the shared experiences, and you understand them. You've lived some of them, but there's a distance, like watching through a window, close enough to understand, but too far to claim it as your own. The stories fit, but they don't stick. You can wear the mask, but it's not your face. That's the third sign, when womanhood feels familiar, but not entirely yours. And let's talk about labels. You might have tried on words like non-binary or gender fluid, but they never felt quite right. Too far from what you know. You're not disconnected from femininity, you're just not bound to it. You crave something that holds that connection but doesn't trap you in it. So you cling to girl, but wish you didn't have to. You want a label that lets you be soft and strong, feminine and not, all at once. You feel like you're floating between worlds, too attached to let go, but too restless to stay. That's the fourth sign, when girl feels limiting, but letting it go feels wrong. And then there's this feeling of never fully belonging. It's not just about being in women's spaces or men's spaces. It's about being in any space that wants you to fit neatly into a box. You hang out with women and feel this invisible thread tying you there, but it's always a little frayed, like you're part of the group, but not fully woven in. You try on men's spaces, but it feels even stranger. You crave a space where you can just be, where you don't have to twist yourself into a shape to fit. That's the fifth sign, when gendered spaces always make you feel like you're on the edge, never fully inside. If you're feeling all this, maybe even just one of these things, it's worth listening to. That discomfort isn't confusion. It's your gut begging you to listen. It's your mind saying, hey, something's off, pay attention. You can ignore it for a while, but it's not going away. And if the word demigirl helps make sense of all this, then maybe it's time to stop running from it. It can be confusing, especially when people talk about gender like it's all or nothing, man or woman, boy or girl. But identities like demigirl exist to describe that middle ground. And just because you feel this way doesn't mean you have to put a label on it right away. You can just exist, explore, and figure out what feels right. Gender's weird and complicated, but it's yours to define, even if it changes over time. It's okay to question and not be sure. It's okay to shift how you feel and what you call yourself. Labels are just words to help you understand yourself better. They're here to serve you, not box you in. You can pick one, change it, or throw them all out if none of them fit. What matters is that you feel seen and understood, even if it's just by yourself. You're not broken. You're not faking it. You're just trying to be honest with yourself. And that's one of the bravest things you can do.